Thank you, Cheryl, and it's a privilege to be here to talk with you today. It's also a privilege to follow a fellow Jim on the speakers platform. It's very rare we find Jims, people named Jim. We got 3 on the panel today, so I appreciate having that. My talk is entitled Designing Around the ISO Certification Process. And that was an interesting title because it's not circumventing the ISO certification process. How do we design around it? And I'll explain what we've done in Santa Clara Valley Water District and how we've incorporated that into our business model. So what I'm going to talk briefly about with you this morning is first who we are, what is ISO and what the standard means, designing around the certification, how we got certification with ISO, how do we implement, and then looking forward with Santa Clara. And then by a show of hands, how many have heard about ISO? And how many of your agencies are ISO registered? All right. Oh, insiders back there. Okay, very interesting. Okay, well then I'll explain why we chose the ISO platform as the vehicle to have as a management system, how it falls into, and why workforce benefits with it. A little bit of background about Santa Clara Valley Water District. You're here today in our headquarters facilities. We serve Santa Clara County, and there's some of the statistics about Santa Clara County. 1,300 square miles, over 1.7 million in population. There's 15 municipalities that we serve. There's 10 local reservoirs that we store water, the local runoff, the rainfall that we receive, we store in local reservoirs. We provide drinking water and agricultural water supply throughout the Santa Clara County. We do that throughout the county with the exception of water that's supplied through the Hetch Hetchy system. That serves about 20% of the water needs of the county, and some other privately developed water by some of our private retailers. In addition to providing water supply, we're also the flood control agency for the county. And so it's kind of a unique combination. Most counties have a county government function in public works that does flood control. Many years ago, it was decided in Santa Clara County that that function should be merged. There's a lot of good sound reasons for that. So our duties include not only providing drinking water, managing the groundwater basin, local supplies, imported water, but also managing the flood flows in our creek system. And we manage over 800 miles of creeks and rivers in Santa Clara County. We've had historic flooding in our county, and so there's been a need for flood protection projects. We have a group in place that performs that. I've had the privilege or the experience to work both in the watershed or flood side of our agency and in the water utility side. And some of my experience with ISO germinated from my watershed experience. So what is ISO? ISO is an international standards organization for standards. It's a worldwide federation. It's a series of standards in various different disciplines, mostly used in industry, which is why I'm not too surprised that it's not used in more municipal type of affiliations. ISO prefix means equal or uniform. We are registered currently in 2 standards, the ISO 9001 standard, which is a quality management system, and ISO 14001, which is an environmental management system. It deals with the environmental regulations that we interact with, and many of us are faced numerous environmental regulations. On our watershed side alone, to do work in our creeks, we have anywhere from 400 to 500 separate permit conditions we have to comply with as we perform those functions in the creeks. Some of the general terms about ISO 9000 is provides for the quality management. What does that mean? Well, the intent is providing consistent quality to our customers. ISO's foundation is meeting customer requirements, plain and simply. So, and we also then under 14,000, we meet the regulatory requirements that we also face. Another goal of that is to enhance customer satisfaction. Presumably if you're meeting customer requirements, and those customers could be external customers, they could be internal customers to the agency. That's a sign of a success in what you're performing. And then it also, for the 9000 series, it has a continual improvement process built into it, what we call a corrective preventative action program. And I'll describe that just a little bit later until how do we improve ourselves as we proceed with time. Now the 14,000 series is again focused on environmental management. Again, industries went to that dealing with a host of hazardous chemicals and they wanted to make sure they were compliant with regulations with regard to that. We looked at it a little differently. We view ourselves as an environmental agency, and so for the standard for us is simply part of our business. We provide environmental function. So we identify the effect we could have on the environment, we control or contain it. We find ways to also minimize our contribution to pollution. What the registration means. So in other words, you could apply the ISO effort and you provide these various processes that describe what you do. But to be registered, you have to be certified or face an audit. So a third party verifies our conformance with the standard. And so, for example, there's a management commitment. They want to make sure that the procedures and practices and controls we put in place match what the standard expects of us. There's also an explanation or staff awareness and participation in what we do. And then we have to demonstrate continual improvement. What that means is this. Every 6 months, we have an external audit. That is, a third party comes to our agency and basically meets with the staff that do various processes in this agency. They see if staff is actually performing the functions that the steps that we say we do. If they see alignment with that, they say great. If they see distinctions to be made that vary from the standard, they tell us about it. It could be a corrective action. It could be an opportunity for improvement. If there is a corrective action required, we have a certain limited amount of time to make that corrective action if you want to maintain registration. So, what does it mean to understanding our customers and empowering our employees? Very critical for what we're talking about, using ISO as a platform. What it does is it strengthens, hopefully improves our relationships with our community and external customers and agencies. It clarifies and strengthens our regulatory enforcement, provides effective and efficient coordination between units of the agency, helps empower our staff, provides information and tools to measure and communicate and manage. So why did we do ISO, of all the things we could have done? Well, it was in this very room I was meeting with my watershed staff about 6 years ago. And we were asking our staff on some of the key work that we do. We broke them into 2 groups in this room. Can you map out your process? And this is work not just we do randomly, it's work we do every day at this agency in key work. And so 2 hours later, they were still discussing among themselves, what is the process we follow? Trying to do, we've all done that, a workflow map. I realized then that we have a problem. We have no disciplined or systematic way of describing what we do. And then it calls into question, do we have a disciplined or systematic way of what we do? So it led me to believe that yes, there is a concern that I have for our organization that I was managing, that we need to do something different. I also did a strategic plan for the watersheds. And one of the issues that was raised at that time was confusion about roles and responsibilities. I don't know if you've ever had that problem, but sometimes people don't understand what they're supposed to do. So I recognize that with a disciplined and systematic approach under ISO, it might be a vehicle to help improve an understanding of the roles and responsibilities of what we do. I could have done Jim's management system. We have another Jim on here. I could have created Jim's management system. What we're going to apply, because I'm the manager, here's how we're going to use our rules. But Jim's management system would only go as far as the time I would be the manager of that group. And when I left, someone else comes in, takes over, they have their own ideas about how they want to run the agency. And so I developed and thought a standard like ISO could be a very useful platform for us to pursue. Also, we had just gone to the voters in 2000, and we received a supermajority support for our Clean, Safe Creeks and Natural Flood Protection Program. But one of the vulnerabilities that I felt at the time we received that vote was how do we sustain our performance over time? How do we demonstrate to our community that we're providing a valuable service? Because there's not too many Santa Clara Valley watersheds that do the type of work that we do in Santa Clara County. So I talked to some key opinion leaders about how do we measure our performance? They said, well, you can compare yourself to someone else, or you compare yourself to yourself. And so ISO became a vehicle for us to really develop a systematic approach to doing that. And then finally, in our county, we're a high-tech county, Silicon Valley. There's many large high-tech firms. They belong to the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, many of them. Many of those agencies and companies are ISO registered. So we're going to use a tool that could be understood by our key opinion leaders in this county. In fact, when I told one of the members of the leadership group that we were pursuing this task, she was very excited for us because she said, that's something my CEOs understand. So it was very informative for us to do that. So that was an exciting component of it. So what does it exactly mean here? Oh, did I miss a slide here? The key, there's 2 parts of this. There you go. So what is ISO? ISO is very simple. It can be very complicated. You say what you do. What is it you do? You write it down. You put it into an ISO process. You do what you say. You actually follow what you say in writing that you're accomplishing. Can